On a luxury flight, silence shatters when a flight attendant humiliates and slaps a black woman in first class. But the cabin freezes when she stands tall and reveals a truth no one expected. She owns the plane. What begins as a story of prejudice and abuse of power spirals into global outrage, viral exposure, and poetic justice. Passengers, recordings, and media turn a moment of humiliation into a worldwide reckoning against racism, silence, and abuse. This is more than a mid-air confrontation. It's a fight for dignity that lands in history. The airport buzzed with controlled chaos, rolling suitcases, boarding calls, echoing, hurried footsteps. Amara Johnson walked calmly through it all, her presence commanding but unassuming. A sleek black blazer draped her shoulders, and her quiet confidence turned heads more than the designer. Handbag in her hand, she handed her first-class ticket to the gate agent. "First class, ma'am." The agent's eyebrows arched in a question that didn't need words. "Yes," Amara said evenly. The scanner beeped green. Yet the woman's lips pursed as if it shouldn't have. She forced a smile. "Enjoy your flight." Amara caught the hesitation but let it slide. She'd dealt with this before. On the jet bridge, whispers trailed behind her. "Must be flying on points. Maybe someone else's ticket." Amara kept walking, chin high. Inside the aircraft, Mr. Collins, a tall, sharply dressed attendant, greeted passengers with rehearsed politeness, but when Amara reached him, his smile faltered. "Good evening, ma'am. Can I help you find your seat?" She showed him her boarding pass. Tua Collins blinked, his jaw tightening. "That's first class." "Yes," Amara replied, voice steady. His smile returned, thinner now, "Of course. Right this way." She settled into the wide leather seat. A few rows back, a businessman whispered to his wife. "Strange, you don't usually see she," the wife whispered back, eyes flicking toward Amara. Amara pretended not to hear, but every syllable burned. Collins hovered near her seat, offering champagne to others first. When he finally reached her, his tone was different. "Would you like water? No champagne?" she asked. He blinked, then quickly corrected. "Of course, champagne." He poured, but his hand trembled slightly, spilling a drop on her tray. Amara smiled faintly, her eyes never leaving his. "Thank you." Narration cut like a documentary voiceover. In places built for comfort, some are made to feel like intruders. The cost of the ticket covers the seat, not the stairs, not the silent judgment, not the invisible weight pressing down. As boarding continued, Collins leaned toward another attendant, whispering, "Are we sure that's her seat?" The attendant shrugged. "Ticket says it is. Don't make a scene." But the words planted a seed, one that would soon grow into confrontation. Amara opened her tablet, scrolling through company reports. Numbers didn't lie. She had built something real, something powerful. Yet here, in this narrow cabin aisle, she was still seen as out of place. The plane doors closed. Engines hummed. The story was about to take flight. The seatbelt light had just flicked on when Mr. Collins returned to Amara's row. His smile was professional, but the way his eyes scanned her, like a bouncer questioning a stranger, stripped it of warmth. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said smoothly. "May I see your boarding pass again?" Amara didn't look up from her tablet. "You already saw it." "Yes, but sometimes there are errors in the system." "Just for verification." She sighed softly, lifted the pass from her bag, and handed it over. Collins studied it longer than necessary, his brows furrowed. He glanced toward the seat, then back at the ticket. "Tua," Amara said, "exactly where I'm sitting." "Yes," but his voice dropped lower. "Are you sure you purchased this ticket yourself?" Her eyes snapped to his. "Would you ask anyone else that question?" The cabin fell quiet. A businessman 2 seats over suddenly found his magazine fascinating. A young couple exchanged a glance but said nothing. Collins cleared his throat. "I just want to make sure everything's correct. Sometimes, passengers are confused about where they're supposed to sit." Amara's lips curved into a thin line. "The only one confused here seems to be you." The words cut sharper than any raised tone. Another attendant approached, whispering nervously, "Is there an issue, Mr. Collins?" Collins held the ticket higher, as if displaying evidence. "This passenger insists she belongs in first class." "I don't insist," Amara said calmly. "I simply do." The attendant shifted uncomfortably. "The ticket says she's in the right seat." Collins dismissed her with a glance. "I'll handle this." He leaned closer to Amara, voice clipped. "Ma'am, If you can't provide further proof, what kind of proof are you looking for? She interrupted. Collins faltered. Well, identification, credit card, something that shows. Amara set down her tablet. You scanned my ticket at the gate. TSA checked my ID. I walked through every clearance point, yet here you are, demanding extra proof no one else has been asked for. Why? Her words hung heavy in the cabin. From behind, a passenger whispered, just loud enough, she doesn't look like first class. Laughter followed, muffled but sharp. Amara didn't turn. She kept her gaze on Collins. He straightened his tie, trying to reclaim authority. Rules are rules. If you don't cooperate, I'll have to ask you to leave. This seat, you mean leave first class? She asked softly. Yes, he said firmly. She tilted her head, studying him. Say it plainly. You want me to move because you don't believe I belong here. Collins' jaw tightened. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you implied. The silence was electric. Finally, Collins snapped. Get your thinks, you're moving. Amara didn't budge. No. Passengers turned in their seats now, eyes darting between the two. A few held up phones discreetly, recording. Collins leaned closer, voice venomous. Listen carefully. You can either move, or I will make you. Amara met his glare with calm fire. Do what you think you must. Her defiance rattled him. His lips curled into something between a smirk and a snarl. Without warning, his hand lashed out, a sharp crack echoing through the cabin. Gasps erupted. Amara's head snapped to the side, cheeks stinging from the slap. She froze, not out of fear, but from the sheer audacity. The cabin erupted in whispers. Did he just? He hit her? Oh my God. But no one stood. No one intervened. Collins' chest heaved. He looked around, realizing what he'd done. But instead of apology, he doubled down. Now, he barked, get out of this seat. Amara slowly turned back, her eyes steady, her voice calm as stone. You've made a mistake, a very big mistake. Her words weren't loud, but they carried. Even the hum of the engines seemed to dim. Narration threaded through the silence like a solemn witness. Power unchecked grows reckless, and when power wears the mask of prejudice, it strikes first, thinking no one will stop it. The silence of the crowd is its shield. Collins stepped back, suddenly uneasy under the weight of so many watching eyes. Passengers shifted, torn between fear and conscience. One woman raised her phone higher, capturing his every movement. Amara placed a hand gently on her cheek, then folded her arms. She didn't cry, she didn't shout, she simply waited. Her silence was heavier than any scream, and it was only the beginning. The cabin had turned into a theater of tension. Every passenger, an unwilling audience, every breath part of the script. Amara's cheek still burned from Collins' hand, but her eyes didn't waver. She sat with an unshaken calm that made the slap feel smaller than it was. Collins, however, was trembling, not with regret, but with a frantic kind of authority. He adjusted his tie again, then barked, Stand up, right now. Amara's voice was measured. No. A collective gasp. Passengers leaned forward, phones discreetly raised higher. The confrontation was no longer private, it was evidence. Don't test me, Collins hissed. You've already caused enough disruption. Amara tilted her head. Disruption. You slapped me in front of everyone. The disruption isn't me. His lips curled. Stop twisting this. You don't belong here. There, it was. The words he had danced around now spilled out raw. Amara's reply was quiet, almost tender. Why don't you say it clearly? Why don't I belong? Collins froze, caught. His silence was louder than any confession. A man in seat 3C shifted, uncomfortably. Maybe just let her sit. Man, it's not worth this. Collins shot him a glare sharp enough to slice. Stay out of it. The man shrank back into his seat. Another passenger whispered, he's insane. But still, no one intervened. Amara leaned forward slightly. Every person here heard you. They saw what you did. They know what this is. Collins' voice rose, cracking at the edges. This is about the rules, about order. No, Amara said firmly. This is about your prejudice. About the way you decided who deserves comfort and who doesn't. Her words spread like sparks, igniting murmurs among the rows. Some passengers nodded faintly, others hid behind magazines and tablets, unwilling to choose sides. Collins clenched his fists. Enough. You're leaving this cabin. Final warning. Amara's chin lifted. Now it was a simple word, but it cracked the fragile shell of his control. He reached for her arm, fingers gripping hard. Gasps rippled through the cabin. "Sir," another attendant started, but Collins snapped, "Stay out of this." Amara yanked her arm free, eyes blazing now. "Don't touch me again." For the first time, Collins faltered. The authority he wielded so carelessly was slipping like sand through his hands. Narration cut in like a verdict. When power meets resistance, it trembles, because deep down, it knows it was never strength, only permission. Only silence, only fear, keeping it alive. Collins tried to recover. "If you don't move, I'll have security waiting when we land." Amara smirked faintly. "Let them wait. I'll be waiting too." The confidence in her voice rattled him more than defiance. A woman in row 1D finally spoke, trembling. "She has the right to sit here. Just leave her alone." Collins turned sharply. "Do you want to be removed as well?" The woman fell, silent, shrinking back. The silence of the cabin returned. Heavier now, complicit, suffocating. Amara's tone cut through like glass. "You believe you're untouchable, that this uniform, this aisle, gives you the right to humiliate, but you've already lost." "Lost," Collins sneered. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "No," Amara said softly. "It's you who doesn't know." The exchange had become something larger than passenger versus attendant. It was a mirror showing every bystander the lines they'd crossed or ignored in their own lives. Collins' breathing grew erratic. His hands twitched at his sides, rage battling fear. "One last time. Move." Amara folded her arms, gaze steady. "No." The word echoed again. No. No to humiliation. No to erasure. No to the invisible weight pressing down for generations. The engines roared louder, outside, but inside. The greater roar was silence. The silence of a man unraveling, of witnesses afraid, of injustice being recorded in real time. Collins stepped back, his smirk breaking into something else. The first glimmer of doubt. Passengers whispered, phones still raised. They weren't intervening, but they were documenting. And Collins could feel the noose tightening, though he didn't yet know it. He tried one more desperate angle. "If you don't move, you'll regret it. I promise you that." Voice was almost a whisper, but it carried through the cabin. "No, the one who will regret this is you." Narration closed the chapter with a chilling beat. Injustice always believes it holds the final word. But it forgets silence is not consent. Silence is only the pause before the storm. And in that pause, the storm was gathering. The crack of Collins' hand still lingered in the recycled air, like thunder refusing to fade. Every passenger had heard it. Every passenger had seen it. And yet, the cabin remained still. No one stood. No one shouted. No one called for justice. They sank back into their plush seats, some pretending to read, others clutching phones discreetly, recording behind lowered eyes. Amara sat perfectly upright. Her cheek glowed with a faint red mark, but her composure made it look like a crown. She did not touch her face. She did not break her gaze. Her silence was heavier than Collins' shout. Collins himself seemed stunned at his own audacity, his hand trembling slightly at his side. But instead of apology, he doubled down. Authority was his armor, arrogance his shield. "Sit down quietly, and we won't have any more problems," he barked, as if he were the victim. Amara's reply was calm. "The only problem here is you." Whispers rose like ghosts. "She should just move." He hit her. "This is crazy. Don't get involved. Honey, it's not our fight." In row 2C, a teenager gripped her phone tightly, recording every second. Her eyes darted to her mother, who whispered sharply, "Put that away before we get in trouble." "But, Mom, now." The girl hesitated, then lowered the phone, but not before capturing Collins' sneer and Amara's unbroken calm. A businessman finally muttered, "This is ridiculous. We're never going to take off at this rate." His wife hushed him, eyes glued to Amara. "She's not leaving. Can't you see that?" Narration cut through like a quiet truth-teller. Injustice does not survive because of the hand that strikes, but because of the eyes that look away. The silence of the many gives power to the cruelty of the few. Collins straightened, scanning the rows. His voice rose louder, aimed at the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, please understand, this passenger is refusing to follow instructions. For your safety, I need her to move." The lie dripped from his tongue with practiced ease. Some nodded faintly, desperate to believe him. Others shifted uneasily, their silence turning into complicity. Amara's lips parted. Your safety has never been in danger, only your pride. Another attendant stepped forward, her voice shaking. Mr. Collins, maybe we should quiet, he snapped, silencing even his own colleague. The attendant shrank back. Her eyes filled with shame. Amara finally leaned forward, her tone precise, deliberate. You think silence protects you, but every phone in this cabin is a witness. Every whisper, every breath, it all condemns you. Passengers glanced at each other nervously, as if caught in the act of betrayal. Some lowered their phones quickly. Others angled them better. Colin's face paled for the first time. He knew she was right, but pride is a stubborn parasite. He cleared his throat, voice straining. This is the last time I'll ask. No, Amara interrupted firmly. It was not shouted. It was not begged. It was simply spoken, and in that single syllable lived centuries of defiance. The plane felt frozen in time, air too thick to breathe, silence so loud it screamed. Passengers clutched armrests, eyes darting between Amara and Collins. No one moved to help her, but no one dared defend him either. The balance of the cabin had shifted. A middle-aged man finally whispered, almost to himself, "Why won't anyone do anything?" The woman beside him answered softly, "Because they're afraid. Afraid if they speak, they'll be next." Narration flowed again, quiet as a confession. Fear keeps the righteous still. Fear teaches witnesses to weigh comfort over conscience. But silence has a cost, and soon the silence of this cabin would be broken. Collins wiped his hands on his trousers, trying to steady them. His authority was cracking, but his denial kept him standing. Amara turned slightly, scanning the faces around her. Her eyes asked questions their mouths would not answer. Will you speak? Will you act? Will you let this stand? Every head turned away. She nodded faintly, as if accepting the verdict. Very well, she whispered. If no one will speak now, I will. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried a promise, one that made Collins stiffen. The silence in the cabin wasn't safety anymore. It was a storm waiting for thunder. The silence in the cabin pressed down like a weight, suffocating and unrelenting. Collins' authority had cracked, but no one dared to step into the fracture. Amara sat motionless, regal even in stillness. She let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Then she spoke. Enough. The single word cut the air clean in two. Every head turned toward her. Collins forced a laugh, brittle and hollow. Finally, you're ready to cooperate. Amara's eyes locked on his. No, I'm ready to tell you the truth. He frowned. The truth. Yes, she said, voice calm but resonant. The truth. You've been too blinded by prejudice to even consider. The cabin leaned forward collectively, drawn to her tone, the gravity beneath her words. You look at me and see a stranger, an intruder, someone who doesn't belong in this seat, in this class, in this space. Collins shifted, his smirk faltering. Amara continued, louder now, her words measured like a gavel striking. But here's what you failed to realize. Mr. Collins, this isn't just my seat. She paused, letting the moment breathe. Then, like thunder, she delivered the blow. I own the plane. Gasps erupted through the cabin. Phones lifted higher. What? Someone whispered. She what? Collins blinked, stunned. You what did you just say? I said. Amara repeated, each word like a drumbeat. I own this plane. Passengers erupted in whispers. Is she serious? She owns the whole airline? No way. But what if it's true? Collins shook his head violently. Denial, clinging to him. That's impossible. You're lying. People like you don't. He stopped himself. But the words already hung in the air. People like you. A collective gasp surged again. Someone muttered, did he really just say that out loud? Amara didn't flinch. You want proof? She reached calmly into her bag and pulled out her phone. With a few taps, she pulled up an email. This is the charter confirmation from Johnson Aeronautics. That's my company. And this flight, this entire aircraft, it's been leased under my name for the next 6 months. She held the screen up, the official letterhead glowing. Passengers craned their necks. Even the other attendants stepped closer, eyes wide. Collins' face drained of color. You've spent the last 20 minutes humiliating me, Amara said, her voice now steady steel, questioning me, slapping me, threatening me, all while standing in my cabin, on my aircraft, under my contract. Her words sliced sharper than any blade. Collins stammered. That doesn't make sense. You can't trust people like me, Amara snapped. Her voice finally broke free from calm restraint, thunder rolling through every syllable. Say it clearly, Collins. You mean black. You mean a woman. You mean someone you decided doesn't belong in this seat. The silence in the cabin broke into murmurs, some shameful, some outraged. The teenager in row 2C whispered to her mother, "She really owns it." Her mother's eyes softened. "My God, she does." Collins staggered back a step. "I didn't know." Amara's gaze was unyielding. "You didn't want to know." Another attendant spoke up timidly. "Ms. Johnson, is this true? You really?" "Yes," Amara cut in, still locked on Collins. "And I didn't need to tell you. My money, my power, my status, none of that should be the requirement for dignity. I shouldn't have to own the plane to deserve respect. But since you left me no choice." Her voice shook for the first time, not with fear but with righteous fury. "I've just given you the truth that will end your career." The cabin burst into scattered applause, hesitant at first, then stronger. Collins spun around, eyes wild. "Stop clapping. Stop recording. This is being taken out of context." But context was written on every face, in every video, in every whisper. Amara rose slowly from her seat, her posture towering. "Look around you, Collins. You're finished. These witnesses will speak. These recordings will spread. Your uniform won't protect you anymore." Collins' mouth opened, but no words came. He looked small now, a man stripped bare of power. Narration laced through the moment, solemn and fierce. Sometimes justice does not arrive in the halls of courts or the hands of the law. Sometimes justice enters mid-flight, spoken calmly in a voice that will not bow. And when truth is spoken, it cannot be unheard. A businessman who had kept silent earlier finally spoke. I should have said something sooner. I'm sorry, ma'am." Amara's eyes softened, but her tone remained firm. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to yourself for the silence you let sit beside you." He bowed his head, ashamed. Collins collapsed into the nearest jump seat, his face pale. This can't be happening. But it was. Every second, every recording, every witness ensured it. Amara adjusted her blazer, reclaiming her seat with quiet dignity. "Oh, it's happening. And when we land, you'll face the consequences." The cabin remained hushed, but the silence had changed. It wasn't complicity anymore. It was and for the first time since the slap, Amara allowed herself a small smile, not of arrogance, but of triumph. The cabin buzzed like a hive, alive with whispers, gasps, and the frantic tapping of thumbs against glass. Every passenger with a phone now held a piece of Collins' downfall in their hands. One clip showed the slap, another captured his words, "People like you." A third ended with Amara's declaration, "I own this plane." Together, the recordings painted a story too powerful to be buried. Collins' voice broke through, panicked and trembling. "Delete those videos. All of you. You can't. This is private property." A man in business class shot back, "This is evidence." A teenager smirked, holding her phone higher. "Too late, buddy. It's already uploading." Collins lunged toward her, but another passenger stood, blocking his path. "Sit down, Collins." The authority he once wielded had slipped like sand through his fingers. Amara sat still, hands folded in her lap. She didn't need to move. The tide was moving for her. The cabin's PA crackled, and the captain's voice came through, tense but controlled. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I've been informed of an incident on board. Please remain calm and in your seats. We will be addressing this upon landing." The words were professional, but beneath them, the tremor of unease was clear. One passenger muttered, "They know. The cockpit knows." Another whispered back, "This is going viral already." And it was. Screens lit up with notifications, posts spread in real time, hashtags formed like storm clouds, hashtag plane slap, hashtag people like you, hashtag she owns the plane. Collins buried his face in his hands. This isn't fair. You don't understand. I was just doing my job." Amara finally turned her head, her voice slicing through. "Your job was safety, respect, protection. Instead, you chose humiliation, violence, racism." "I didn't mean you did," Amara cut in. "And meaning isn't erased just because you regret being caught." Another passenger, an older woman, spoke up for the first time. "I saw everything. I've flown this airline for years. If they don't fire you, I'll never fly again." "Yes," someone else echoed. "Same here." A wave of voices rose. Passengers, emboldened by her courage. Narration threaded through like a documentary lens. One act of cruelty had divided the cabin into silence, but truth has a way of shifting gravity. And now, silence was no longer an option. The crowd had chosen its side. Collins stood, voice cracking. You're all overreacting. She's not even she's, but his sentence died, strangled by the weight of 50 eyes glaring at him, recording him, condemning him. The second attendant, trembling, spoke up at last. Ms. Johnson, I didn't know. If I'd realized gaze was steady. You shouldn't need to know who I am to treat me like a human being. The attendant's lips quivered. No reply came. The man in 4A raised his phone. It's already hit Twitter. People are tagging the airline's official account. Another passenger chimed in. News outlets will have this before we even land. Collins swayed, his knees threatening to give. No, they can't. My kids, my family. Amara's voice carried no malice, only truth. You should have thought of them before you slapped me. The cabin door opened, and a stern-looking purser stepped in from the galley. She had been briefed. Her eyes scanned the cabin, settling on Amara, then on Collins. Mr. Collins, she said flatly, please step aside. Collins stammered. Bibbit now. Her tone left no room for resistance. Collins slumped into the jump seat, trembling. The purser knelt slightly beside Amara. Ms. Johnson, on behalf of the airline, I'm so sorry for what happened here today. Amara didn't soften. Save your apology for the statement you'll release to the public. This doesn't end in this cabin. The purser swallowed hard. Understood. A ripple of murmurs passed through the rows. Passengers nodded at Amara, some offering quiet words. You were incredible. Thank you for standing tall. You spoke for all of us. Amara only inclined her head. Her voice remained steady. I spoke because silence would have let him win. Narration pressed in again, grave and reflective. Racism thrives on shadows, on whispers, on the moments when good people choose quiet over courage. But once exposed to light, it withers. And here, mid-air, with nowhere to run, the truth had burned bright enough for the world to see. Collins tried one last time, voice raw. You don't understand. I've worked 20 years. 20 years of loyalty to this airline, and it's all gone. Because of you. Amara's eyes locked on him, sharp as glass. No, Collins. It's gone because of you. Because loyalty to an airline means nothing if you betray loyalty to humanity. The words struck harder than any slap could. A teenager whispered, that's going to be quoted everywhere. Her friend nodded, fingers flying over her phone. Already tweeted it. The captain's voice returned. Ladies and gentlemen, we have contacted ground authorities. There will be personnel waiting at the gate. Please remain seated until further notice. Gasps rippled again. The weight of accountability was descending fast, and Collins knew it. He curled into himself, muttering, they'll destroy me. They'll destroy me. Amara closed her eyes, weary but resolute. Justice isn't destruction, she thought. It's revelation, and revelation demands a cost. The plane's descent began. Out the windows, city lights glittered like 1,000 watchful eyes. Inside, phones continued buzzing. Millions already knew what had happened. By the time the wheels hit the ground, the world would be waiting. The wheels screeched against the runway, the shudder of descent rattling through the cabin. Passengers gripped armrests, not from turbulence, but from anticipation. They knew what waited outside. The intercom chimed. The captain's voice came through, firm and clipped. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. Authorities will be meeting this aircraft at the gate. Every phone lifted higher. Ready. Collins sat slumped in the jump seat, uniform wrinkled, sweat beading on his forehead. His authority had shrunk into a hollow shell. He muttered under his breath, over and over, they can't do this. I didn't mean it. 20 years. 20 years. Amara sat poised in her seat, calm yet unyielding, eyes fixed forward. Her silence now carried more power than all his words. The jet bridge clamped onto the aircraft, with a heavy metallic groan. Outside, blue and red lights flickered against the windows. Passengers gasped. Police. Media vans too. They're already here. The purser's voice carried down the aisle. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated until directed. Security will board momentarily. The cabin hushed into tense silence. Then, the door opened. 3 uniformed officers stepped inside, followed by 2 airline executives in suits. their faces taut with forced professionalism, cameras from outside pressed against the glass, flashes sparking. The lead officer's voice boomed. "Mr. Collins." Collins' head snapped up, his lips trembled. "Why, yes, sir. You'll need to come with us." His hands shook. "But I didn't. I was just doing my job." The officer's tone sharpened. "Now, Mr. Collins." Passengers lifted phones higher, catching every second. Collins looked around wildly, searching for allies. "Tell them," he shouted. "Tell them I didn't mean it. Someone please." But the cabin stayed silent. Not one passenger came to his defense. Amara finally rose. Her voice was steady, low, but it carried. "Your job was service. Your choice was violence. And now, the consequences are yours alone." Collins froze at her words, then lowered his head, defeated. The officers moved in, flanking him as he stumbled down the aisle. The passengers' whispers trailed behind him. "He deserves it. Justice. About time someone like him faced consequences." Phones tracked him until the door swallowed him, leaving only silence and the heavy echo of his downfall. The executives stepped forward, facing Amara. One cleared his throat. "Ms. Johnson, on behalf of the airline, we extend our deepest apologies for this horrific experience. This doesn't represent who we are." Amara cut him off. Her voice, cool. "It represents exactly who you are. Until today, he wore your uniform. He was your system." The second executive stammered. "Bavia, we assure you, will conduct a full investigation. Immediate disciplinary action has been taken. Will ensure." Gaze hardened. "Ensure or contain. Because right now, the world isn't watching your promises. It's watching your actions." The businessman from earlier raised his voice. "She's right. If you want trust, don't say it. Prove it." Other passengers chimed in. "Release the recordings yourselves. Fire him publicly. Don't bury this like you bury everything else." The executives paled, caught between fear of exposure and the blazing eyes of accountability. Narration cut in like a cold blade. When injustice is personal, it can be hidden. But when it becomes collective, when it leaves dozens of witnesses and thousands of recordings, it transforms into something systems cannot suppress. It becomes undeniable truth. One officer stepped back into the cabin. "Ms. Johnson, would you like to file an official statement now, or wait until you've disembarked?" Amara's voice was steady. "Now, while every witness is present." The officer nodded. "Of course." He pulled out a recorder. "Please describe what happened, in your own words." Amara turned slightly, projecting her voice not just to him, but to every passenger, every phone still recording. "Collins accused me of being in the wrong seat. He demanded I leave. When I refused, he insulted me, physically assaulted me, and publicly humiliated me. His actions were motivated by prejudice, not procedure. His words, 'people like you,' were clear evidence of racial bias. And the slap he delivered was not authority. It was abuse." Passengers nodded, some murmuring agreement. Amara continued, "Stronger now. I want it on record that I didn't resist. I didn't escalate. I only defended my right to sit in the seat I lawfully purchased. I revealed my ownership of this plane not to flaunt wealth, but to prove that dignity doesn't come from status. It comes from humanity." Something Collins forgot. The officer clicked off the recorder. "Thank you, Miss Johnson. That statement will be attached to the incident report." One executive whispered, "This will destroy us in the press." Eyes flicked toward him. "No, covering it up will destroy you. Owning the truth is your only chance." The door finally opened fully for disembarkation. Flashbulbs from the jet bridge strobed as cameras surged. Voices shouted from outside. "Miss Johnson, over here. Is it true you own the plane? What message do you have for the world?" Passengers shielded their faces, but Amara didn't. She stepped forward into the blinding light. Her words rang clear, cutting through the chaos. "My message is simple. Respect should not depend on race, gender, or wealth. No one should need power to demand dignity." Today, the world saw what happens when prejudice takes the place of service. And today, the world saw what happens when truth answers back. Applause burst from behind her. Passengers, ordinary witnesses, now part of the story. Collins was led down the opposite jet bridge, hands trembling, reporters hounding him with questions. "Do you regret what you did? Were you racist toward Miss Johnson? Why did you slap her?" His silence became his confession. His bowed head became his sentence. Narration wrapped the moment in solemn gravity. Justice doesn't always roar in courtrooms. Sometimes it lands on tarmac, in the bright flash of cameras, in the trembling voice of a man who once believed himself untouchable. And sometimes, justice is a woman who refuses to bow, reminding the world that truth, once spoken, cannot be silenced. Amara paused at the top of the jet bridge. One last glance back into the cabin. The passengers met her eyes, some with admiration, some with tears. She gave a single nod, not of victory, but of solidarity. Then she walked forward, into the flood of lights, into history. The next morning, the world had already chosen its headline. Attendant slaps black woman in first class, then learns she owns the plane. It blazed across screens, trending across every platform, dissected on talk shows, plastered on news tickers. The video looped endlessly, Collins raising his hand, Amara's stunned stillness, and then her words echoing through the cabin. I own this plane. The world couldn't look away. Inside a quiet hotel suite, Amara sat at a desk, laptop open. Her phone buzzed with notifications, thousands of messages, tags, requests for interviews. Her name was no longer just Amara Johnson. She had become a symbol. Her assistant Renee entered with wide eyes. CNN wants you on prime time. The BBC is asking for a statement. Oprah's team just emailed. Amara exhaled slowly. Of course they did. Renee hesitated. Are you ready for all of this? Amara leaned back, voice low. I was never ready to be a symbol. But silence isn't an option anymore. On the other side of the city, Collins sat hunched in his small apartment, blinds drawn. His phone buzzed too, but with venom. Racist pig. Hope you never work again. People like you don't belong in the skies. He hurled the phone against the wall, tears streaking his face. His 20-year career evaporated overnight. His uniform now hung lifeless in the closet, a relic of power lost. His wife's voice cut through the silence, trembling. What did you do, Mark? What did you do? He couldn't answer. The slap replayed in his mind, over and over, until even he could no longer deny the truth. Meanwhile, the airline scrambled. A press conference was hastily arranged. The CEO stood stiff behind a podium, cameras flashing. We condemn, in the strongest terms, the actions of the employee involved. He has been terminated effective immediately. We are implementing new racial sensitivity training across our staff and revising our protocols to ensure such an incident never occurs again. Reporters shouted over one another. Is it true the passenger owns the aircraft? Was this covered up initially? Why did your company protect him until the videos went viral? The CEO's forced smile cracked. We are deeply committed to change. But the world wasn't satisfied with rehearsed apologies. The videos had spoken louder. Back in her suite, Amara finally agreed to one interview, a live stream watched by millions. The host leaned forward, serious. Amara, the world saw what happened to you. Why did you choose to reveal your ownership of the plane in that moment? Amara's voice was steady. Because power is the only language some people understand. Collins didn't see a woman. He didn't see a human being. He saw what he believed was weakness. And when I revealed the truth, it wasn't about flaunting wealth. It was about exposing the lie he lived in. The lie that dignity is earned through status, when in truth, it belongs to all of us by birth. The chat exploded with comments. She's a queen. Her words hit harder than the slap ever did. Give this woman the mic forever. Narration swelled, somber yet victorious. Some stories end in tragedy, others in silence. But when injustice is recorded, amplified, and carried by millions, it transforms into something bigger than itself. It becomes a lesson, a reckoning. A week later, a rally filled the steps of a courthouse downtown. Thousands held signs. Respect without power. People like you equals people like us. Justice at 30,000 feet. Amara stood at the podium, the crowd roaring. Her name, yesterday, I was just another black woman, asked to prove she belonged in her seat. Today, the world knows my name. But this isn't about me. She paused, letting the crowd still. This is about every voice silenced by prejudice, every person told they didn't belong, every slap, insult, and humiliation brushed aside because the abuser wore a uniform or a title. Today, we say no more. Today, we remind the world that respect is not a privilege, it's a right. The crowd erupted. Somewhere in the back, the businessman from 4A watched, eyes wet. He whispered to his daughter, she gave me courage. Next time, I won't stay silent. And the daughter, clutching her phone with the viral clip saved forever, nodded. Neither will I. Collins watched from his dark apartment, TV light flickering across his face. The rally chants echoed through the broadcast. Respect without power, respect without power. For the first time, he understood he hadn't just lost his job. He had become the cautionary tale. His name would live on, but not in honor, in disgrace. And in that, justice found him. Amara closed her speech with words that would be etched in headlines worldwide. I shouldn't have had to own the plane to own my dignity. But now the world knows I won't let anyone steal it again. And neither should you. The chant rose again, thundering, unrelenting. Neither should you. Neither should you. Narration folded the moment like a final note. Poetic justice does not erase the wound, but it ensures the scar tells a story. A story of resistance, of exposure, of dignity reclaimed. And though one man's downfall cannot erase centuries of prejudice, it can light a fire. And fires, once lit, are hard to put out. Amara stepped down from the podium, greeted by hands reaching for hers, cameras flashing, history recording. She had not asked for this fight, but now it was hers, and she would not let it go.